Welcome back. Malaysia needs to provide better protection for whistleblowers. Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism C4 says whistleblowers are often subjected to harassment and intimidation, as illustrated in recent events where activists and media personnel were investigated by authorities for drawing attention to shortcomings in the government's handling of the pandemic.
C4 Centre's K. Sudhagaran Stanley calls for reforms on the Whistleblower Protection Act to allow for more transparency and accountability.
Well, there's a lot of gaps in the current act. For example, you are only allowed to go and make a complaint to enforcement agencies listed under the act. So that is something that we are actually calling for amendments, for Section 6(1) of the Whistleblower Protection Act to actually be amended, because you should allow a whistleblower to actually go make a complaint to other people also, including, for example, lawyers, media organizations, or civil society organizations, because people sometimes, especially when the matter being whistleblower about involves a government wrongdoing or government agency wrongdoing, people are going to be afraid to actually go to the police or go to the MACC and actually make a complaint. They may not have faith that their complaints will be actually investigated, or they may actually be afraid of being targeted themselves.
Stanley also urges reform to disallow executive interference in the enforcement of the Act.
So currently, Section 4, which is the power of minister to issue directions, and Section 27, which is the power of minister to make regulations, this needs to be removed, because we cannot allow a minister to actually give directions to enforcement agencies what and what not to do. This is about blowing the whistle. So we cannot allow for government's interference in enforcement of the Act. So that section needs to be removed. That's clear. Is for the decision to actually provide protection. Currently, if I want to go and make a complaint to the enforcement agency, it is the police or the MACC that actually decides whether they want to provide me with the protection under the Whistleblower Protection Act. Now, what we are calling for is that the police or the MACC or other enforcement agencies or the government cannot decide, cannot decide to whom they want to give the protection. We should have an independent body, which is separate and free from government influence, that actually makes this decision on who to give the protection to. In this time of pandemic, there's just so much of room for abuse to happen, from vaccines, from contracts and so on. There's just so much of room for manipulation and for corruption and for abuse of power to happen. I think it's important for the government to actually send out the message right now that whistleblowers will be protected at all occurred, and we must encourage this positive attitude of actually whistleblowing.
Acts of intimidation, he added, serve no purpose but to further erode confidence in the system and prevent future whistleblowers from coming forward.
The persecution of whistleblowers in this country must stop. We cannot go after whistleblowers because that really sends a wrong message out to people. So effectively, by actually arresting and investigating or even charging whistleblowers in the country, it puts off other potential whistleblowers in wanting to come forward and to blow the whistle. They'll be scared that they might be targeted or they might end up in court and so on. So this culture, when we talk about what is the first step of enforcement, this needs to change first. We need to have this positive attitude of encouraging whistleblowers to come forward and to blow the whistle.